Help me to stay competitive against the big multinational corporations by subscribing to this channel, hitting the notification bell, liking the video, and maybe leaving a comment in the comment sections below. Thank you very much and enjoy the video. Greetings, free thinkers. Okay, have I got the video for you today? Now, it would be great if you could watch this video all the way through because you're going to love this. This is a video on Trump's State of the Union speech in the USA, which you've probably seen. If you haven't, then I'm going to show you the highlights, but also, and this is what makes this video so good, I have selected some of the best parts that demonstrates some of the body language and facial expressions and even some of the things that Nancy Pelosi was muttering under her breath during Trump's State of the Union address. And I watched it through a couple of times, and on the second and third times I actually watched the Democrats and focused entirely on theirs and on Nancy's body language. And I'm going to tell you and show you some of the things you might have missed. I'm so stoked up about this video. It's going to be really fun. So sit back, make yourself a coffee or a tea, or even have something strong to drink if you so choose, and watch this lesson in body language from the Democrats. Okay, here we go.
3 years ago, we launched the Great American Comeback. Tonight, I stand before you to share the incredible results. Jobs are booming, incomes are soaring, poverty is plummeting, crime is falling, confidence is surging, and our country is thriving and highly respected again.
Okay, so that was Trump's open, and in my opinion he sounded a little bit nervous as he was going, but my main focus was on Nancy Pelosi, who, as you could see, when he mentioned the word crime, her eyes kind of glazed over and looked straight down a little bit. And when he was speaking about the prosperity of America and how the country's doing better than it ever has before, she had that most uncomfortable look on her face.
A record number of young Americans are now employed. Under the last administration, more than 10 million people were added to the food stamp rolls. Under my administration, 7 million Americans have come off food stamps and 10 million people have been lifted off of welfare. In 8 years under the last administration, over 300,000 working-age people dropped out of the workforce. In just 3 years of my administration, 3.5 million people, working-age people, have joined the workforce. Since my election, the net worth of the bottom half of wage earners has increased by 47%, 3 times faster than the increase for the top 1%. After decades of flat and falling incomes, wages are rising fast, and wonderfully, they are rising fastest for low-income workers who have seen a 16% pay increase since my election.
Okay, so those two segments you saw there were Trump listing off his and his administration's real changes that have affected working class Americans primarily, and middle class Americans, but primarily working class blue collar Americans. The type of people that the Democrats traditionally used to pander to and who used to try to get the vote from. This used to be their traditional voting base, especially in some of the very industrial areas that voted Democrat for a long time, but in the 2016 election flipped and went red. Some of them by quite narrow margins, but Trump, nevertheless, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, and this is a good thing about Trump, okay, despite what the mainstream media and the Dems say, if you are an American, he is for you. It doesn't matter if you're not for him, but if you are an American, he is for you, because he is the all-American hero. He is a man who has stuck to his promises and done exactly what he said he would do. And I know that's very unusual in the West to actually have a leader who does what he says he's going to do. Now, onto the Dems. You saw at the end there just this glib look on their face. Now, you also might have seen that the majority of them, the women Democrats, are wearing white, which, in my opinion, is a throwback to the time when they used to be made up predominantly of the Klan members, dressed all in white with the white hoods. You know who I'm talking about. They were Democrats. The Klan were Democrats. But if you listen to the mainstream media or any socialist professor, they'd have you think that they're Republicans. And a lot of people believe that. But if you go and look through history, you'll find that the Democrats were the real Klan members. And not only that, but going back to the subject in hand, Donald Trump has successfully risen up working class people in his support, and all the Democrats can do is sit there with those miserable looks on their face like you saw. They couldn't even bring a smile to their face to celebrate working class people getting a better quality of life.
The unemployment rate for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans has reached the lowest levels in history. African American youth unemployment has reached an all-time low. African American poverty has declined to the lowest rate ever recorded. The unemployment rate for women reached the lowest level in almost 70 years, and last year women filled 72% of all new jobs added. The veterans' unemployment rate dropped to a record low. The unemployment rate for disabled Americans has reached an all-time low.
Staying on the theme of employment, and the segments in this video you see won't be entirely in chronological order. Most of them are, but for subject matter's sake, I am lumping, for example, all of the quotes he made about jobs into one and immigration into another, etc., etc. So, moving on to his speech about people of colour, and particularly African Americans, whose job in work rates and statistics are higher than they've ever been. This, as you could see, visibly angered the Democrats, who secretly, they don't want African Americans to go into employment. They want them to be dependent on the state, so long as the Democrat left, the socialist left, are in charge of the state, because the left-wing authoritarians are all about state. They're all about big government. The bigger, the better. If they can get all of their friends into government positions, that's good. Their dream is to have a Zimbabwe-style country, a Venezuela-style country even, in which all of their friends and their cronies are given government positions of power, no matter what that position is. You've probably seen it yourself in daily life when someone gets given power, particularly if they're left-wing. they will take it as far as they possibly can. And that could be anything. Myself, I saw a woman who was in charge of cleaning toilets in the county council for the local council where I live. She eventually became to believe that those toilets basically belonged to her, even though they were public toilets, and she was the gatekeeper of the toilets. Okay, that's what I'm saying about when power goes to your head, and this is a thing with the left. Moving back into this subject matter, they do not want African Americans leaving the so-called Democrat plantation. They often accuse people like Candace Owens, who is a black conservative, of being a house N-word or an Uncle Tom, etc., etc. Well, no. If anything, it is the Democrats, or specifically the African American Democrats, who, despite all of the evidence, go out of their way to try to stop other African Americans from leaving the plantation. Okay, they are the true Uncle Toms, because they are the true house N-words, and I'll tell you why. Because they are the ones who are doing the bidding of their Democrat masters, and as I've told you before, the Democrats are the real party of the Klan. They always were. Go and look it up in history if you don't want to take my word for it. You don't have to take my word for it. I always advise people to do their own research, but as you could see in that segment, the Democrat left were not very happy at all that African Americans were not only getting into employment and becoming self-sustainable, but, and that's more important here, they left or were at risk of leaving the Democrat plantation.
132 lawmakers in this room have endorsed legislation to impose a socialist takeover of our healthcare system, wiping out the private health insurance plans of 180 million very happy Americans. To those watching at home tonight, I want you to know we will never let socialism destroy American healthcare.
Now, I thought that was a very powerful and revealing moment there, because Trump was basically staking his flag to the mast and saying that socialism will never have a place in American decision making. Now, that's, of course, that's a given. However, we face a strange position in the West these days, and particularly in America, where the Democrat Party has basically been hollowed out to the point where all of the moderates are either now wavering, possibly going to vote independent. Some might even vote for Trump if it's a clear choice, if it has to be done, Trump or far left, adamantly socialist Democrats such as Bernie Sanders, or they might just choose not to vote at all. And all that's left for the Democrats after this hollowed out event is the far left, who are they're just careening off the cliffs of far left intersectionality politics. And as a result of that, as we're seeing with the Iowa caucus and the Iowa votes in the Democrat nomination, which is happening around about the same time, they're fixing it. Bernie Sanders won that the last time, but they rigged it for Hillary to win. And we don't know yet. I mean, I'm recording at the moment. It's going to take a few hours for this video to get out. Something might change in the time. But at the time of this, filming this, it looks as if Bernie's won again, but they're going to rig it. They're going to rig it for someone else to win. They are, at the moment, blaming it on all kinds of things. Just ridiculous things like the app crashed, and not only did the app crash, they are saying that the backup system also crashed. How insane is that? Not only is that an affront to democracy, it is an affront to people's intelligence, even the average intelligence of the average person. It is just an affront. How can this keep happening? And you notice it always happens to Democrats, and it always happens when the person who is going to win wins and they don't like him for whatever reason. Now, this type of thing goes way back to Tammany Hall. In the United States, you had the Democrat Tammany Hall, which was notoriously corrupt. Notoriously corrupt. Just like the Democrat Party always has been corrupt. They're the clan of corrupt, the party of corruption and the party of the Klan. Going back to the video that we've just watched, when Trump said that socialism will never take over the healthcare of the United States, the camera panned to the Democrat Party. Now, in some instances, when Trump makes some speeches and makes some points in his State of the Union address, sometimes Democrats, whether they feel obliged to or whether they genuinely agree with his position, do get up and applaud for whatever reason. However, on this point, none of them stood up. None of them stood up and applauded it, because secretly they all want big government takeover of everything from migration to education to, of course, healthcare.
Over 130 legislators in this chamber have endorsed legislation that would bankrupt our nation by providing free taxpayer-funded health care to millions of illegal aliens, forcing taxpayers to subsidize free care for anyone in the world who unlawfully crosses our borders. These proposals would raid the Medicare benefits of our seniors and that our seniors depend on, while acting as a powerful lure for illegal immigration. That is what is happening in California and other states. Their systems are totally out of control, costing taxpayers vast and unaffordable amounts of money. If forcing American taxpayers to provide unlimited free health care to illegal aliens sounds fair to you, then stand with the radical left. But if you believe that we should defend American patients and American seniors, then stand with me and pass legislation to prohibit free government health care for illegal aliens. This will be a tremendous boon to our already very strongly guarded southern border, where, as we speak, a long, tall, and very powerful wall is being built. We have now completed over 100 miles and have over 500 miles fully completed in a very short period of time. Early next year, we will have substantially more than 500 miles completed. My administration is also taking on the big pharmaceutical companies. We have approved a record number of affordable generic drugs, and medicines are being approved by the FDA at a faster clip than ever before.
And moving there, we jump to the migrant healthcare segment, in which he gave a very passionate speech about the fact that it's just common sense. Look, it is just common sense to not be the world's most rich and amazing. I would live in if I could live in the United States, I would. I'm in my mid-30s. It's a bit too late for me, but had I have known what I know now, and had I have had the same drive when I was younger that I do now, I would have went, possibly, if I could, to live in the United States, because I love America. It's such a beautiful country, and I respect America, and I respect Americans, and I respect Trump and everything that he is doing. But I also would never in a million years turn up in America and demand, us British, we don't do this type of thing. And it's the same with a lot of Western countries. It only seems to be third world countries that do this. And this is exactly why, in many instances, why they are still third world countries. You can blame America all you like. You can blame Britain all you like. The fact of the matter is, a lot of people have to start taking responsibility for their own faults as individuals and as nations. And us British, we just don't do that. I wouldn't turn up in the United States of America and say, come on, there's my hand, give it. But a lot of people from a lot of countries, especially like Mexico, and there are even people coming from the Middle East and Africa who are taking flights to Mexico and then crossing the American border that way. Well, if you're that much of a refugee, if you've got nothing, where's all this money coming from? Okay? Now, and then as soon as they're there, they want an immediate tune-up on the taxpayer. And the same type of thing happens here in the United Kingdom. Now, going back to the speech, you might have seen at one point when Trump was using California as a demonstration, which is something he does often, and I don't blame him, because everyone on the right uses California as the prime example of what happens when you have uninterrupted leftist control of an entire region for decade after decade after decade, which is what California has been and is being. California is also Nancy Pelosi's district. She is the congresswoman for that area, and as you've seen, California is a hellhole. It's such a beautiful state when it comes to nature and even architecture, but it is ruined by decades of far left garbage laws that just add regulation and red tape on top of regulation and red tape, and so on and so on and so on. This is what I mean about big government. You remember what I told you about the lady who was the queen of the public toilets here in Britain? In my city, if she had decision-making powers, she would spend her entire day making up regulation and law after law after law permitting who can go into the toilet, when they can go into the toilet. They'd have employment drives to get janitors for the toilets. They'd have to have affirmative action in the toilets. It would be just regulation on red tape up until the point where nobody can get in there to take a piss anymore. No one would be able to get in the toilets. This is what I'm saying. It's happening in... That type of thing is happening in New York and California, which, coincidentally, is Jerry Nadler's and Nancy Pelosi's districts, respectively. And the point I was going to make is, when Donald Trump is giving that part of his speech, if you look at the back at Nancy Pelosi, she mouths the word, "What?" She's shocked. She's surprised to find that her own district is such a mess, because she lives in a bubble. She lives in a Washington bubble.
In 2017, doctors at St. Luke's Hospital in Kansas City delivered one of the earliest premature babies ever to survive. Born at just 21 weeks and 6 days and weighing less than a pound, Ellie Schneider was a born fighter. Through the skill of her doctors and the prayers of her parents, little Ellie kept on winning the battle of life. Today, Ellie is a strong, healthy 2-year-old girl sitting with her amazing mother, Robin. In the gallery, Ellie and Robin, we are glad to have you with us tonight. Ellie reminds us that every child is a miracle of life, and thanks to modern medical wonders, 50% of very premature babies delivered at the hospital where Ellie was born now survive. It's an incredible thing. Thank you very much. Our goal should be to ensure that every baby has the best chance to thrive and grow just like Ellie. That is why I'm asking Congress to provide an additional $50 million to fund neonatal research for America's youngest patients. That is why I'm also calling upon members of Congress here tonight to pass legislation finally banning the late-term abortion of babies.
Okay, abortion. And I've been waiting for this segment, and excuse me. And I'll tell you why. Because the Democrats did something, or attempted to do something, last year in about the springtime, which was so audacious. And because I always get my news now from alternative media sources, I myself am an alternative media source, and I trust other alternative media sources such as Sargon of Akkad, the Red Elephants, Tim Pool alike. Now, Tim Pool is a honest type of a lefty. He's a rare and dying breed. I think Pool is a very smart man. I think he's a very honourable man. But I also think in some instances he is astoundingly naive. But, look, no one's perfect. And that includes me. But I do respect Tim Pool. I think I watch his videos all the time. But I do think sometimes he can be very naive. Anyway, going back to abortion. And by the way, I'm not bringing him into abortion or any of them into abortion. I'm just saying that I get my news from alt media. And when I heard about this, I thought it was fake news coming from the alt media, which is something we don't do. There was a governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, he's called. I even remember his name. That's how shocked I was. Who was actually trying to get post-birth abortions. He was trying to get late-stage abortions right up to the moment of birth passed in Congress, but then they wanted after-birth so-called abortion, or what me and you would call infanticide, or at the very least euthanasia, which is of course something that the radical left, socialist, in any socialist dictator love to do. Anything from Stalin to Adolf Hitler. And by the way, I'm not going to get into it on here, but Adolf Hitler was a socialist. He was a left-wing socialist. He was not right-wing capitalist. It's in their name, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Acronym Nazi. Okay? They were left-wing. I'm not going to digress on it, but to make my point, I just want to say that since the Second World War, the best day's work the left-wing Marxists in the education system ever did was to convince every generation from the post-war generation onwards that the Nazis were right-wing, knuckle-dragging, capitalist, racist type people, when they were not. Okay, they were left-wing socialist authoritarians. But anyway, we're missing a beat. Going back to the euthanasia thing, not only that, Ralph Northam, the Democrat governor, was unapologetic. He even described how he would do it. He would, quote unquote, keep the infant comfortable, and if the mother, in league with a doctor, decided that the baby should be aborted, even though it's been born, then they would go ahead. And by the way, if you don't know how abortions take place, they use a giant needle and filled with what is essentially lit salt. It's like sodium salty brine, and they force it into the it's a big needle, and they force it into the spine up in the brainstem, and they squirt it all in there. That's how they do this. I don't even want to call it aborting, because isn't that disgusting? These are people are gonna. I'm losing my words. These people want to do that. And the reason why I've brought all this up is because if you watch that video there when Donald Trump says they are never going to allow in his name late-term abortions, you see the camera pan to all the Democrats and not a single one agrees. Not a single one disagrees with the just barbaric method of quote-unquote abortion. Disgusting. You can give the baby up for adoption if you don't want the baby. You don't have to abort it. You might regret it later, because once you've done that, once you've aborted a child, no matter how far along the pregnancy you are, at a later date, if you regret it, there's no going back.
Thank you, Mr. President. Great honor. Thank you very much. Please take this message back that all Americans are united with the Venezuelan people in their righteous struggle for freedom. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Socialism destroys nations, but always remember freedom unifies the soul. To safeguard American liberty, we have invested...
Okay, this part I found quite humorous, but also very revealing. Now, there was a number of statements Trump made that weren't in regards to any subject especially, but were kind of like philosophical points he was making, and they were very spot on. Now, after the segment, if you watched it, there was a part on Venezuela. They had the Venezuelan president who... he was kind of president in waiting. He won the election but had to flee because the socialist tyrant, because all tyrants are left-wing socialists, the radical leftist socialist Maduro refused to relinquish power because, as I've been saying throughout this video, going back to the public toilet lady, what they want more than anything, and what they covet more than anything, is power. Power over you. And they'll take power over you, whether it's a country, an entire nation full of people, or a public toilet full of drunk men trying to take a piss. Doesn't matter what. What they want is the power. But anyway, I digress. Trump said in this segment, as you've just seen, that freedom liberates the soul. And now, as normal, with my second and third time watching the video in its entirety, I was focused more on not what Trump was saying with his mouth, but what Democrats and what Nancy Pelosi was saying with her body and her eyes and her facial features. And you saw her mouth something, something, and it didn't take a lot of lip reading skill to understand what she said, but in case you didn't get it, she mouthed just what Trump said. Freedom liberates the soul. But then she looks up and she looks generally puzzled, like she, the left-wing socialist, the closet socialist, never considered that freedom might liberate the soul. You can actually see her look up like that, like, freedom liberates the soul. Wow. You see what I'm saying? It's just ordinary concepts that you and me grasp and consider sacred, such as freedom and liberty and life. The left just... it's completely alien to the left. They've never experienced or even heard of such a thing.
From the Pilgrims to the founders, from the soldiers at Valley Forge to the marchers at Selma, and from President Lincoln to the Reverend Martin Luther King, Americans have always rejected limits on our children's future. Members of Congress, we must never forget that the only victories that matter in Washington are victories that deliver for the American people.
This was one of my favourite moments, okay? What you just saw there when Donald Trump said about what they should be doing in Congress and as politicians is serving the American people and putting the American people first, not themselves. Now, that was a backhanded... I suppose you could say an attack or a backhanded affront, quite rightly so, on Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff, who the camera panned to, and you could see they were visibly angry. Now, and I actually went back and watched that little segment there about 4 or 5 times. It was so beautiful, because the thing is, when Donald Trump said that specific part, you saw him look over to the Democrat pews, but he was actually looking at Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler dead in the eyes. He looked at them and he told them dead to the eyes, face to face, men to men, that you should be putting the American people first. And even some on the Democrat side start to cheer, and you look at Adam Schiff and he looks around with those wide eyes of his and he looks visibly angry and anxious. Because they're swamp politicians up to their neck. They are the sleaziest of sleazeballs, and they know it. Not only was Trump's speech so good and so effective, but normally when I'm looking through YouTube comment sections and I'm debating with people on a lot of the Fox News comment sections and message boards, you'll often have leftist trolls just flooding the comment sections, just saying the most ridiculous things, really. Just that. What is it with leftist trolls and this habit they have to compare people, and especially Donald Trump, to fairy tale characters and lullaby characters? You often see this, this is why the left and the right often find it very difficult to debate each other, because us on the right, we will discuss facts, logic, reasoning, sound arguments, and the left will respond to a factual statement with some bizarre personal attack where they will accuse you of being Humpty Dumpty, or they will compare you to Winnie the Pooh or something. It's just infantile, ridiculous nonsense. And the point I'm making is, after this speech, how beautiful it was, I checked the comment sections and the message boards. There was not a single leftist troll in sight. What does that tell you?
To rescue these students, 18 states have created school choice in the form of opportunity. Yet for too long, countless American children have been trapped in failing government schools. To rescue these students, 18 states have created school choice in the form of opportunity scholarships. The programs are so popular that tens of thousands of students remain on a waiting list. One of those students is Janiah Davis, a fourth grader from Philadelphia. Janiah. Janiah's mom, Stephanie, is a single parent. She would do anything to give her daughter a better future. But last year, that future was put further out of reach when Pennsylvania's governor vetoed legislation to expand school choice to 50,000 children. Janiah and Stephanie are in the gallery. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here with your beautiful daughter. Thank you very much. But Janiah, I have some good news for you, because I am pleased to inform you that your long wait is over. I can proudly announce tonight that an opportunity scholarship has become available. It's going to you, and you will soon be heading to the school of your choice.
Now, one segment I thought was especially sweet was when the African-American single mother and her daughter were in the crowd, and Trump was talking about his reforms to allow very poorly ran, Democrat-ran, inner-city state government schools to give the pupils hope by having this scholarship initiative which will allow selected children to go to much better private schools, hopefully of their choosing. Certainly the mother and her daughter got to go to the school of their choice. I should imagine that will be the same for others, but this is the type of thing that lifts poor people, whether they're poor whites, working class, or African Americans, it offers the opportunity to lift them out of poverty, which is a big no-no on the left. They want everyone in poverty. This is what the far left, and the left in general, really mean when they say equality. When the left say equality, they don't mean everyone being equal and having a very comfortable lifestyle. No, that's not what they mean. What they mean is they will tax all of the wealthy people and steal basically from the wealthy people habitually, to the point where the wealth of a country and society has been evened out like a pancake. Okay, imagine a pancake pastry that they're filling, and it slowly evens out from a big dome like that. You put a big dollop of pancake mixture down and it's like that. And as you iron it out, it gradually gets thinner and thinner and thinner until it is an even layer about as thick as a piece of paper. Okay, a sheet of paper. That's what they mean by equality. Oh, and by the way, they won't be that. They won't be that financially insecure. When they say equality, it's equality for you and me, not for them. There will be the champagne socialists eating the finest food, drinking the finest red wine, going to the best places, while you will have thin gruel, nothing more, and then you will not only have thin gruel and nothing more, but you'll sing the praises for it. You leftists, you'll just love it so much. You will thank them for ruining you.
For all Americans also requires us to keep America safe. That means supporting the men and women of law enforcement at every level, including our nation's heroic ICE officers. Last year, our brave ICE officers arrested more than 120,000 criminal aliens charged with nearly 10,000 burglaries, 5,000 sexual assaults, 45,000 violent assaults, and 2,000 murders. Tragically, there are many cities in America where radical politicians have chosen to provide sanctuary for these criminal illegal aliens. In sanctuary cities, local officials order police to release dangerous criminal aliens to prey upon the public instead of handing them over to ICE to be safely removed. Just 29 days ago, a criminal alien freed by the sanctuary city of New York was charged with the brutal rape and murder of a 92-year-old woman. The killer had been previously arrested for assault, but under New York sanctuary policies, he was set free. If the city had honored ICE's detainer request, his victim would still be alive today. The state of California passed an outrageous law declaring their whole state to be a sanctuary for criminal illegal immigrants, a very terrible sanctuary with catastrophic results. Here is just one tragic example. In December 2018, California police detained an illegal alien with 5 prior arrests, including convictions for robbery and assault. But as required by California's sanctuary law, local authorities released him. Days later, the criminal alien went on a gruesome spree of deadly violence. He viciously shot one man going about his daily work. He approached a woman sitting in her car and shot her in the arm and in the chest. He walked into a convenience store and wildly fired his weapon. He hijacked a truck and smashed into vehicles, critically injuring innocent victims. One of the victims is a terrible, terrible situation. Died, 51-year-old American named Rocky Jones. Rocky was at a gas station when this vile criminal fired 8 bullets at him from close range, murdering him in cold blood. Rocky left behind a devoted family, including his brothers, who loved him more than anything else in the world. One of his grieving brothers is here with us tonight. Jody, would you please stand? Jody, thank you. Jody, our hearts weep for your loss, and we will not rest until you have justice. Senator Tom Tillis has introduced legislation to allow Americans like Jody to sue sanctuary cities and states when a loved one is hurt or killed as a result of these deadly practices.
Okay, I'll wrap it up soon, but I really wanted to add this segment in because it highlights just what I appreciate what Donald Trump's doing here. He's showing to the American people just how bad the Democrats are, but more importantly, he has brought the real world into the Democrats' bubble, which is a political masterstroke, and not only that, it morally, ethically, and on a societal level has to happen, because the Democrats have been in this bubble, this leftist bubble, for too long now. And what he's done is by bringing in the family of the man who was killed by the illegal migrant who shouldn't have been in the country, he has both shattered this myth that the mainstream media who run cover for the Democrats like to portray of them all being peaceful, loyal, just great, hard-working, industrious people. But not only that, he has brought a real-life victim and collateral damage into the bubble of the Democrat left, because for a long time we've tried our hardest to get the left to see the error in their ways, and we've tried to bring them to the collateral damage and to bring them to the consequences of their misguided actions. But they've refused. They're like, no, I don't want to see it, not for me. And what Donald Trump has done is he's brought the collateral damage from these attacks and robberies and assaults and sexual assaults by those people into the leftist bubble, and they can't escape it. And the look on Pelosi's face is classic. She's rattled. You can see her cage is very rattled, and Kamala Harris just sits there with that stupid smirk on her face like it's a game. She just sits there with that stupid smirk on her face like it's a game. But I really loved that segment, and I wanted you guys to see it, to see for yourself what they're really like.
America, thank you very much.
Okay, and finally we have the, as you've seen, the just the most disgusting act of petulance and childish arrogance and self-centered, self-righteous loathing of Nancy Pelosi when she ripped up that speech. She ripped up Donald Trump's speech. She ripped up the changes to the sanctuary city system. She ripped up the changes to NAFTA. She ripped up the changes to pharmaceutical pricing. She ripped up the changes to the United States military. She ripped up the school scholarship program for that little girl you saw. She ripped up the late-term abortion changes for the other little girl you saw, who is only alive now thanks to the miracle of the doctors. She ripped up not only that, but the American Constitution. She ripped up the traditions of the House. She ripped up decorum. What she done then was rip up the fabric of what makes America America. She ripped it all up when she ripped up his speech. And not only that, since the time I've making this video for you, I've been keeping up to date with the latest development. She has been called out on her ripping up of the speech, but she's predictably, she's doubling down and saying, no, I stand by what I done. She ripped up his speech, okay? That's the loathing she has for the United States of America. Because at the end of the day, Donald Trump is only a representative of the people, and he knows that. Like, all the Republicans know that. The problem is the Democrats, they don't know that. They think that it's the people that should provide them with power, when it's the opposite. It is the politicians who should provide the people of the United States with security and financial competence and a state in which they can live and they can thrive. As the United States says, life and liberty. Thank you very much for watching. I know it's been a long video, but I wanted to capture as much as I can over the magic of Donald Trump's speech. What he's done is invigorated his voter base, and I personally believe he's clinched the 2020 election. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't yet, by all means go on, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you to all my friends in British Resistance. It was great to meet you. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you and goodbye.